Good day, ladies. Janelle here, your relationship coach. Today, I have a very special guest joining me. Her name is Renee Roberts, and she helps women in midlife navigate the menopause minefield. Hello, Renee. Thanks for joining
Hello.
us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm super
Yeah.
excited to be here.
Yes, I think this is such an interesting topic, and I think this will be very interesting for a lot of the ladies that listen to these podcasts and are really looking for some uh, answers around how to navigate this sort of new stage in their life called menopause. I know as someone who's going through perimenopause, and things are my body's already starting to change, and it's a little bit concerning sometimes. Wondering if there's anything wrong with us. This is just the way this way goes, and really how it impacts our everyday life. So I'm so excited to have you with us today to talk about, you know, all the different things that impact us in this sort of age or this phase in our life.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I call it the menopause minefield, because it's like a minefield, and it's different for every woman that goes through it. And it's like, what is going on?
Yes.
And it's like, and a lot of people are like, oh, and even you go to the doctor. My doctor has said this to me. She's like, it's just you're aging. But that's not an excuse. You should
Yeah.
still feel great. And, age is just a number, and you should still feel amazing. And that's what I try to do, is help people feel amazing through it, because it does suck sometimes. It's like, what's going on? You're
Yeah.
moody, you're cranky, you're gaining weight, or maybe losing weight, or low libido, all that stuff, moody, crankiness. It's just a big pain. And yeah.
Yeah. And then the add on like the hot flash. I haven't gotten there
Oh yeah,
yet,
I haven't
but
gotten there yet either.
I've heard about it. And for me right now, I'm kind of going through the phase where my menstrual cycles are like, I thought I was pregnant because I didn't get a period. And I was like, oh, okay, well, it's all over the place now. And it's kind of messing up my sex life, to be honest with you, because I'm like, I have no idea when it's coming, and it'll just come up for a day and then it's gone. And then it's like, what's happening? And I don't trust my body now, or I don't trust my little app that used to tell me,
Oh
to
yes.
prepare. And so I'm already starting to feel a bit of the frustration and like, what the hell is going
Yeah,
on?
I know. It's luckily I didn't have to go through all that. I had to have a hysterectomy. I had, my whole life I had heavy periods, and I had 2 endometrial ablations before I had the hysterectomy to try to help, and it didn't work. So we're like, let's just do it. But I still have my ovaries, so I didn't go into menopause yet. But I do remember when the first time I did the endometrial ablation, I had my tubes tied as well. What do you call that? Tubal ligation.
Mhm.
I knew there was a better word for that. And my doctor had given me pills to put me into a temporary menopause.
Hmm.
So that was my warning of what I would be like. I was like, oh no, I had the hot flashes. I had all that stuff. I'm like, whoa, no, we're
Wow.
going to fix this before that happens.
Yeah.
So
So how do we create balance through all of the different things? I know, in before as we were preparing for this conversation, you had been talking about sort of some of the key pillars that, most women struggle with. So can you talk a little bit about that?
yeah. And these are the pillars that I focus on is, a lot of times when we get older and we start having the hormonal imbalances, our sleep is affected. A lot of women tend to wake up in the middle of the night now, and then they start thinking, and then they can't go back to sleep because they're like laying there thinking. And
Yeah.
so there's that. There's just the stress levels are typically higher. We have higher cortisol levels, which is our stress hormone, at this time, because a lot of times we're in the highest point of our career at this point, for a lot of women. So the stress is higher, or if you're just, still dealing with children, and sometimes you're dealing with aging parents at this point too. So you have stress coming from everywhere. So,
Check, check,
uh,
check. Well, I love that you said that because I've been not sleeping for a couple years, and I'm like, what is wrong with me? And I've gotten better with like meditating and yoga and breath work, but I'm still waking up in the middle of the night. And it's like, and I'm wide awake. Like I could do a full on, like I could have this conversation with you. And sometimes that's what I do is I come into my office and I work for half an hour because I feel like maybe that's what needs to be done for me to be able to sleep. But a lot of times I'm just like completely awake and I'm like, what is up with that?
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
frustrating. So what would you suggest for some tips for women like that?
Well, I mean, there are different things you can try if you end up waking up in the middle of the night. A lot of times it is stress that's doing it, because your cortisol level should be low and your melatonin level should be high, and melatonin is our sleep hormone. You want to have that, they're in an inverse relationship. So what you could do is, first of all, what not to do, which is very hard, is don't go for your phone. Don't turn on any electronics, because that blue light is going to wake you up even more. Your cortisol levels are going to raise even higher. So my suggestion is try to do a mind body scan, like basically go from head to toe, look and think about every part of your body, because what it's doing is it's keeping your brain off of stressful topics, right? You're focusing on your body, you're focusing on any pain, or no judgment, but just anything that you feel. That sometimes relaxes you enough to go back to sleep. I do hypnotherapy scripts. I listen to them.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, after about 20 minutes, if you're still wide awake, then it is good, like you did, is get out of bed. Get out of bed, but do something unexciting. So read a book that you've already read, or something that's going to calm you. Do some stretching, yoga, meditation, whatever. Keep the lights low. I have, through my house, I have night lights in case I have to use the washroom or whatever. I don't turn on any overhead lights. And then usually, you probably start feeling, sleepy again, and then go back to bed. I know it's frustrating. I've been through it. I've lived through it for a long time, and I still have it, but I know going to bed if I'm going to wake up, just depending on my day, what I've eaten. There's so many things that affect our sleep wake cycle and our sleep stages through the night. So
One
yeah.
thing that seems to work for me most days, it's probably like a 80% success, which I think is decent. I microwave a hot milk
Okay.
and I put some honey in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a childhood memory that I have, but there's something really like soothing and comforting about having hot milk as I'm like in the dark. And usually if that's kind of one of my last resorts when I get out of bed and I may feel a little bit of anxiety, perhaps.
Okay.
There's some sort of anticipation, not necessarily negative, but just like something that I'm thinking about, maybe that's happening the next day, or, like, for example, I think last night, so I got a really big income tax return and I was calculating what I wanted to spend that money on. And I was getting really excited about it. So, these are things that keep me awake. Awesome. So what's another pillar that you work in?
I do stress, hormones, and diet and sleep. Those are the 4 pillars that I kind of focus on, and they're all related.
Yeah.
You can't really take one out and focus just on that, because they are all related. But
Yeah. So
yeah,
let's talk about diet.
yeah, for sure. So diet's an interesting one, because as we age, we can tend to not be able to eat foods that we used to be able to eat before. You start seeing some sensitivities come up. What you eat does affect how you feel and how you sleep at night. It also can affect your hormones. So it's really important to understand what your body likes and wants, and what your body doesn't like and doesn't want. And it doesn't mean that if you're sensitive to certain food now, that you have to be off of it forever. It's just they come and go. And so it's a very unique thing for each person. A lot of times, there are things we can do. Like I run a 21-day reset 4 times a year, and that basically is an elimination diet to help people. And the actual elimination part is just 1 week long, 7 days long, but it helps people really figure out, after they start reintroducing those foods in the 3rd week, how they feel. And a lot of people are like, whoa, I can't eat gluten. I can't eat dairy.
Mhm.
I don't like, when I eat sugar, it just wigs me out or something. So that's the nice thing. So that's something you can try. That's easy to do. It's not very costly. There are other things you can try if you think you may have sensitivities as well, like lab testing. I offer that as part of my practice. And but if you have a naturopath, they offer lab testing as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. And food sensitivity testing, hormone testing, and all that is something that you can do. You have to pay for it a lot of times. So it's a more expensive option, but if you want to get to the root cause really fast,
Mhm.
I did it I did food sensitivity testing many, many, many years ago. It changed my life. It really did, because I realized there were things like salmon, all nuts except peanuts, I was allergic, like a sensitive to. It was weird. Like she found me, worked with my naturopath, and she found the oddest things. I'm like, well, that's weird. But I took it out of my diet and I felt so much better. But now I eat
Mm.
salmon. I'm fine with salmon. I'm fine with certain things now in moderation.
Yeah.
So that's some of the things you can do, is just really keep an eye on what you're eating and
Right.
how you feel after. You can keep a journal and see.
Are there any certain foods that you would recommend that for women to have in their diet that would be distinct inside of this sort of stage in life?
I think it's, drawing a broad stroke. I mean, some of the top inflammatory foods are gluten and dairy.
Mhm.
Some nightshades are another one, like tomatoes, eggplant, stuff like that. What I would suggest is to play around with those and like, if you eat them, take them out of your diet for a while, try and see what you feel, and then reintroduce them. And those are things that you may want to watch out for,
Yeah.
you know. At our age too, we want to, going back to hormones, watch our insulin levels. So watch the amount of sugar that you're consuming. Sugar is in everything.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking just a bar of, candy bar. I'm talking there's sugar in processed foods. I think there's over 250 different names for sugar. So when you read a label, anything ending in OSE is typically a sugar.
Right.
And you want to be careful about how much you eat of sugars, because that will really affect your balances, your hormone balances, and your insulin levels and stuff like that. And yeah.
Can I ask a weird question? What is it about nightshades? And that's peppers, that's eggplant, right?
Yeah, it's weird. Some people have no issue with it and some people do. It's just that it creates some kind of an inflammation in your body. So
Mhm.
if you're sensitive to a food, and a lot of people are sensitive to nightshades, your body becomes inflamed. And when your body's inflamed, weird symptoms can happen, right? So for me personally, when I was eating stuff that I was sensitive to, I never noticed it. But what I did notice is it taxed my immune system and I got sick. I caught every virus that was near me, I caught. And that's how I found out about it, because I was sick for an entire year. I'm like, what is going on? I had the flu, I had strep throat a few times, I kept getting sinus infections all in 1 year. And I'm like, this sucks. What's going on? And I found out, I cut all those foods out. I haven't had strep throat since. I haven't had the flu since. I get the occasional sinus infection, but it goes away in a few days. So that's what can happen to you if, it may just tax your immune system, but you also may have other issues that come out. Like you may have digestive issues from it. So it really it depends on the body, but that's what it is. They cause an inflammation in your body's like, what is this foreign invader? I don't like it.
Right.
And then when our joints and everything, when everything's inflamed, it's going to hurt. You may feel more joint pain. You may feel muscle ache, stuff like that, where
Yeah.
you're like, why am I so sore all of
Yes.
a
Yes.
sudden? And it could be what you're eating and you may not even know it.
Yes.
So those are the things that you really need to be a detective and just find out. And, it doesn't hurt. Again, it's like, just keep an eye on
Yeah.
something. You feel bad, think about what you had for breakfast, the lunch, or dinner the night before.
Yeah.
And
There's this part of me that's like, I don't want to know. I don't want to be told that I can't have cheese or, something like that. However, I can see, from a place of responsibility, it's like, yeah, you can have the cheese, but if you don't feel good, at least you probably can say, yeah, it's
yeah,
because I ate that thing and I wasn't supposed to eat.
yeah. And it
Right?
could be just in moderation too. Like if you
Sure.
eat cheese every day, or like if you're, if you are intolerant to dairy or lactose or casein, which is a milk protein, um, if you have a glass of milk or ice cream every day, you may start to feel it. But if you have it like once in a while, that's okay too. It may be fine.
Mm,
Unless you have a real allergy or sensitivity, but if or intolerance. But if you just have food sensitivities, it's something that you don't have to cut it out completely. You just may have to watch how much you eat of that
yeah.
product, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of having to cut out everything. I do during my reset, like, yes, let's do this for this week, but we always reintroduce it back in to see how you feel.
Right.
So yeah.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about hormones. I think that I wanted to talk about this specifically because, as a relationship coach, this is something that, you know, low libido is something that a lot of couples
Hmm.
struggle with.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been there.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm on testosterone right now. Um, Testosterone is one of the main hormones that affect our libidos, men and women. And women do actually need testosterone. They don't need a lot. There's like a line that you don't want to go too much, but um, if you're not producing enough testosterone, then you may not feel the urge to want to get it on, and or
Mm,
you don't feel good. So testosterone is one of those, sex hormones, along with estrogen and progesterone as well. If they're not balanced, you may not feel like you want to do it either, just because they're all related
yeah.
to the sex hormone. They're all
But
sex hormones. So.
how did you know that was it a blood test that you had to take to tell you, or was there a symptom that you had other than obviously low libido, but was there something else that you're like, you know what? There's something up. I think I need to go get this checked out.
Well, I work with a hormone doctor. I have been for a number of years now, because I got to the point where I wanted to have the test done because I was gaining weight. I was moody. I wasn't sleeping well. Didn't want to have sex, all that stuff. I'm like, what is going on? And I kind of knew, but and this was many years ago too. So this was before it's pivoted into what I'm doing now.
Mm,
And I get my blood work tested a couple times a year, probably about twice a year. And the testosterone, funny enough, is new for me. It didn't even register on the scale the last time I had it done. So I
interesting.
was like, what? I'm like, I have none? Because I kind of feel manly. I'm like, I gotta have
Yeah,
some
yeah, right.
testosterone, but
Strong masculine energy. I
I
don't need no
know. I'm like,
testosterone.
whoa. And so I'm like, well, it makes sense because I really just, I had a low libido. So
Mm,
that's how I found out through blood testing. There's different kinds of testing you can do for that. And you know, it does cost money, but if you're at the point where you're like, I
mm.
gotta get this fixed, it may be worth it,
But
especially if it's causing issues, right, in a relationship, or you just, and another one I always talk about is thyroid. It
mm,
affects so many other hormones in the body, and it affects your mood, it affects your weight, and all that can affect how you feel about yourself, and also in turn affect your libido, right? Because if you're not feeling good about yourself because you're gaining weight and you can't figure out why, so you feel gross, you think you look gross, um, you're not going to want to
right? Get
do
naked.
stuff, right? So I know it's just so, there's just, yeah. And what I found, thyroid's an interesting one because a lot of times that's tested through, like, at least in Canada, through the family doctors. But there's different types that you want to test for. And the doctors typically test for just one certain type of antibody, TSH. But there's also free T3, free T4, which you want to have tested, but typically that doesn't happen from your family doctor. You have to specifically ask for it and probably pay for it. But those are what you want to get tested. And a lot of the ranges for the normal, there's a normal range and then there's an optimal range as well. And whether you're hypothyroidism, which means your thyroid isn't is low produced, it's not really working the way it should, or and that's where you have the weight gain, or you can have hyperthyroidism where it's like overdrive and you probably can't gain weight if you to save your life, right? So it's a lot of people in our age end up going towards the hypothyroidism, and that could be causing the unexplained weight gain and not being able to lose it, and then hence getting into that, oh, I feel gross.
Yeah.
And my mood, it affects your moods and stuff as well. So if you're moody, that's not going to help either.
Yeah. I'm so glad we're talking about this right now, because listening to so many couples struggle with the intimacy part of their relationship. And, I've had a lot of women who've said, I don't know why I feel the way I do. And oftentimes they'll interpret that as there's something wrong with the relationship. They don't even consider that, oh, maybe this is hormonal, maybe, or for the man, right? It's like when they have ED, they think there's something wrong with them, when it's like, oh, maybe there is a solution. Maybe it's just something that needs to be tweaked rather than something that's wrong with them.
Yeah.
And so I'm so glad that we're talking about this, because then it's like, oh, it's not that I don't love my husband. It's not that I'm not interested in sex. There's just this thing that is out of whack that's really messing up the normal way of being. So I think that this conversation is really, will hopefully bring some relief and some comfort to a lot of women to say, well, yeah, maybe it isn't that you're not that you're, it's anything to do with the actual relationship or your connection or intimacy level. It's just something physiological. So I'm really glad we're talking about that.
Yeah, I know. And it's one of those things, I can attest to the fact that, getting everything balanced in my body really has made a difference for my mental health. I used to be the moodiest person. When I went to therapy, my therapist was like, Renee, you operate at this level, and anything that sets you off, you're drowning, and then you're flipping out. And ever since I've been able to balance everything, my hormones, and just eat better and all that, I don't let that stuff bother me anymore. And it's easier. It's not that I've, yes, I've done some mind work and mental work as well, but not enough to see that difference. So I totally believe that it's because my body is like, it's working the way it should. So yeah.
That's awesome, Renee. So to wrap up, can you tell us a little bit about, what sort of programs you're offering, or if you have anything coming up, and finally, like, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so I have a couple things coming up. I do one-on-one and group coaching, and I do workshops as well. And so one of the things that's coming up, like I think I mentioned that I do this reset 3 to 4 times a year. I typically do one in the summer, July, but because I'm actually traveling, I pushed it out to the fall, to September. So I have that coming up. It's a 21-day, I call it the energy reset, because you really do get a lot of energy. You sleep better. I love going through it myself because it just resets all my bad habits that may have creeped into my lifestyle. So I have that coming up in September. In August, I'm doing a 5-day challenge. It will probably be my sleep better challenge. I have a couple ones that I do, so I'm leaning towards that. So that's a free 5-day challenge that I do. And other than that, one of the other things I didn't mention, and I don't even know if you know this, is I do hypnotherapy as well. Actually, we did talk about this offline a little bit, but so that's something new that I offer as well, because it really, especially with the sleeping, it helps. It has helped me immensely. And that's why I ended up getting certified in it, because it really helped me get to sleep, stay asleep. And it also helps with any limiting beliefs that you may have or whatever that you want to fix. It's really cool. So those are some of the things that are coming up.
That's awesome. And how can people get a hold of you, Renee?
I have a website, My company name is Nourish to Live RX, but the website is just the acronym ntlrx.com. That's the easiest. I always keep it up to date. And I have a Facebook group as well, Fabulous Over 40, and it's for women over 40. And yeah, that's where I hang out.
That's awesome. Well, Renee, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your wisdom. I know I got a ton out of this
Awesome.
conversation, and I'm sure the viewers will too. So thank you for
Okay.
being with us.
Thank you for having me. Yes.